We are on Chapter 12, Part 3. Chapter 12, Field Interviews, Arrests, and Jail Searches. Chapter 12, Part 3. Slide 21. Search incident to the arrest. Older rationale for search after the arrest were to protect the police from harm, prevent destruction of evidence, and allow seizure of contraband. The current standard, there's a limited search to the area under the suspect's control. Look at Figure 12-2. It's on page 368, and if you look at that diagram, you'll see a search incident to arrest, a person that was arrested in a living room, and where the police would be able to search under that arrest. Slide 23, I don't know if it's Chamel versus California. Police were arresting a party in their own home. Incident to the arrest, the police searched the home. The Supreme Court limited the search. The police could only search the petitioner's person, the person they were arresting, and the area from within he might have obtained either a weapon or something that could have been used as evidence against him. Slide 24, search incident to arrest continued. Search of the individual, the area immediately under the control of the individual, for weapons, for contraband. Searching, it's irrelevant what the crime that they're being arrested for. Justification, you can't use items found to justify an arrest. The arrest has to already be made. Arrest versus field search. Arrest searches can be more intrusive than a frisk. Discovered evidence. Whatever is found is admissible, even if it is not related to the arrest. Let's say you're arresting someone for an assault, and then you found evidence to a drug dealing or drug evidence, then that could be a separate charge. Slide 25. Search incident to arrest continued. A physical arrest versus a citation, like a traffic ticket. If it's just a ticket offense, the search may be limited. The state statute controls it, each state. Vehicle searches, which will be covered a lot in Chapter 13, you can search the whole compartment if an arrest of the driver or a passenger. The search can be quite intrusive. Protective sweeps. Quick visual check of a larger area for safety is permissible. Let's look at page 369 of your textbook. The third paragraph, whether or not a physical arrest is made is important. When the state law authorizes a custodial arrest, somebody is taken into custody, it shows the offense is considered sufficiently serious to justify a major invasion of the individual's privacy. Action is less offensive. Officers may be authorized to cite and release. A citation is a lot smaller invasion of the suspect's privacy. Intrusive searches are not permitted for a citation. Traffic stops present a typical example. If the suspect is released at the scene, the officers may not invade the suspect's privacy by doing a thorough search. The officers can, however, order the occupants to get out of the car. The right to search in these situations is similar to what can be done in a field interview, such as a pat-down or frisk. But this is allowed only if there is reasonable suspicion that the person is armed. Next paragraph, in Arizona versus Gant, it allowed searches of vehicles incident to the arrest of the driver or the passenger under limited circumstances. Searches are now permitted only if there is reason to believe that the arrestee might have access to the vehicle at the time of the search, or that the vehicle contains evidence relevant to the arrest. Look at page 370 and 371, 12-4. 12-4, comparison of right to search during a field interview and comparison of right to search incident to an arrest. During a field interview, right to search, the officer must have reasonable suspicion that the suspect is armed. Incident to an arrest, the search is allowed any time a person is arrested and taken into custody. No suspicion that the person is concealing evidence is required. They've already been arrested. Reason to search. For a field interview, sole justification of search is to retrieve weapons that's used to harm the officer. In an arrest, originally the Supreme Court stated the purpose of the search was to retrieve evidence of the crime, weapons, and contraband. Later cases allowed the search whenever there's a valid custodial arrest, even if there was no grounds to believe the person was concealing anything. Timing. For a field interview, it has to be done during the brief detention allowed by Terry. For an arrest, it must be contemporaneous with the arrest. Searching a person, pat down for weapons only for a field interview. For an arrest, an officer may search all items within the suspect's immediate control. Search of the surrounding area, and none for a field interview. For an arrest, officers may search items within the suspect's immediate control. Search of a vehicle. For a field interview, if a person was in a vehicle when detained, officers may search the passenger compartment for weapons if there's a reasonable suspicion that weapons are in the vehicle. For an arrest, if the person was in the vehicle at the time of the arrest, the officers may conduct a thorough search of the passenger compartment only if it is reasonable to believe the arrestee might access the vehicle at a time of search or that the vehicle contains evidence relevant to the offense which the occupant was arrested for. Now, there can be, of course, a search warrant obtained to search the entire vehicle. And 12-5 on page 371, let's also look at protective sweep and versus an arrest. A search is conducted under protective sweeps when the officers arrive at the location. This would be like a going through a building, going through a residence for safety reasons. Search incident to arrest is after the arrest. Rationale for the search for the protective sweep, it's to protect the officers from being ambushed when searching or making an arrest. The rationale for the search after search incident to the arrest is to protect the officer, prevent destruction of evidence, and seize contraband. An area that may be searched for a protective sweep, the area adjacent to where the officers will be performing their duties, it's restricted to places where a person could hide for an ambush. For an arrest, person and area under that person's immediate control, no restrictions are based on the size of the container or covered. And what officers are looking for a protective sweep, people who are hiding and may harm the officers. What officers are looking for, search incident to an arrest, anything of evidentiary value. And slide 26, booking. Booking is the process of admitting an arrestee into jail. Booking searches are designed to prevent entry of weapons or contraband into jail, limited to persons and property. The search of the person can be extensive. They can have a strip search. There may be some limits if it's a minor offense. Search of property, anything in the arrestee's possession is subject to a search. Slide 27, jail and prison searches. Once a suspect's in custody, virtually any search is permissible. Searches based on a reasonable administrative reason. Searches of persons in a cell. Individuals may be intensively searched in a cell. No expectation of privacy exists in a cell. It is open to any warrantless search. That's the end of this lecture.